Hello, welcome back to SoulSchool. Welcome to episode 3, Release Your Radiant Being. In the last episode, I was talking about karma, fate, and destiny. And one of my suggestions was that you might like to make yourself a timeline for your life, and possibly a timeline for earlier generations, so you could map out the karmic moments, the points of significance during that timeline when things went this way or that way and allowed you to evolve as who you are right now. I also suggested that once we start releasing ourselves from the mind cuffs of the thought processes that lock us into our karmic history, then our inner radiance can start shining through. So in this episode, I'm going to talk a bit more about time. Now, people who have mystical experiences often say that it felt timeless, that time seemed to stand still. And when you get into a very deep state of meditation, you also have that experience of being outside time, not governed by tick-tock chronos clock. You can experience being what people call kairos time, which is vertical time instead of horizontal time. Now, how do we set about that, and why is it useful to think in that way? Well, the ancients, if we look back at the philosophy of the philosophers like Plato and Socrates and those early Greeks, they had this concept, which I think is really useful to us, that we come from a transcendental realm where the soul is disembodied. It doesn't have any human particularity. And there's a great wealth of information in those soul philosophies about how you come to choose who you're going to be this time, how you come to choose the angelic template that you will use. And that's another story in a way. But what they suggest is that once you've made those decisions, those life choices, what I call the divine contract, you start stepping down into more materiality. And it's described as a downward process, and that the soul has come from an elevated arena, and that gradually we are descending into being a human. And this idea of descending or ascending back is quite common in spiritual teaching. And sometimes we even get the idea of ladders going up and down, and the angels are at the top of the ladder and we're at the bottom of the ladder, and that we can ascend through various stages to get back to the angelic realm. Now, that realm of the soul is outside time. And in the process of being incarnated, we go through different stages. They're not necessarily better or worse than the others, even though it's described as coming down. And there's one particular level which is in astrology is delineated by the archetype of Saturn, who is in charge of time. His Greek name is Kronos, and that's the point where we take on being alive in time. So that's the point in our evolving journey, that we've taken on the karma that we're working with. Now, when we look at it from an astrologer's perspective, and this is, Release Your Radiant Being is not an astrology course, but they're quite useful archetypes that we can consider. If we think that there's a lord of time, Saturn, and that because we're in a human incarnation, three-dimensional world, we are kind of in the realm of the lord of time, then we can consider what archetypes, what gods are there to support us releasing the radiant being, so that we can experience living in time, while at the same time we are aware that we are timeless beings. We're trying to reach 200%. 100%, yes, we're living in the material world, we're paying our rent, we're putting the lunch on the table, we know how to cope with materiality, but we are also aware of the timeless nature of who we are, and that is that has to be in relationship like this. And the Lord of Time thinks he's in charge, and we have allowed the Lord of Time to be in charge. We've invented all kinds of clocks, and it's almost to me a sin to give a clock or a watch to a child when it's very young, to start training it in clock time. And a child who has much more freedom from the usual timetables of school and the limitations that are put on small children nowadays to conform to timetables is actually quite debilitating for the most spiritual beings. So in order to be like a little child, we have to find ways of removing ourselves, at least occasionally, just temporarily. Notice the word temporarily. We have to release ourselves from the bonds of the Lord of Time. And one of the things that you can consider is the concept, and we get it in very specifically in the Christian teachings, that there is a greater power than the Lord of Time. In the story of the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Aslan, who is killed by the wicked witch, the Snow Queen, and he is kind of resurrected in a Christian kind of way. He talks about the magic before time, that he is able to do that because he is not bound by the Lord of Time that says he's dead. So death shall have no dominion. And that spiritual concept is very, very powerful, and sometimes it's difficult to accept it as true when you are living in the world where people are born and people die, and sometimes the deaths are extremely distressing. So to believe or to step into the faith that death will have no dominion, that the Lord of Time is not actually in charge of everything, is quite a challenge. And one of the ways to move into that sense of faith is by taking up a meditation practice. And I shall talk about that a little bit more in episode 4. A meditation practice allows you to do that sidestep into your deeper state of consciousness, where you will know for certain. It's not a question of believing, it's a question of gnosis, as the old mystics would say, of knowledge, because once you know it, it will always be with you. You won't feel bound in the same way to the world of time because you have experienced it. So releasing your radiant being is like opening the window to a light which is there all the time. Julian of Norwich, one of the great Christian mystics, she said, God is like sunshine, but we keep the shutters closed. We just keep the shutters closed and we don't notice. We're not aware of this radiance. And that's what I hope to offer people through my courses and through my books, is a kind of wake up, allow the radiance in you to start shining. And it may, to some people, sound easier said than done, but actually it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult when you make the commitment, when you release things that are blocking you, and you allow yourself to live that and be that and radiate the light. And with what's going on in our culture, in our human history at the present time, the more of us will do that, the more positive the result can be for the whole of humanity. So I encourage you, if you can't come on my course, and I do have very small numbers in my online Zoom classes, if you can't come on one of those, look out for the book. And alongside the book, you will be able to get recordings later in the year. Those are in the pipeline. So contact me, Theolyn, at theolyn.com if you want to be on a list for a course, or if you want to pre-order the book. Make sure that you are on my mailing list by going to the website theolyn.com and signing up. Then you get newsletters, and then you will also have access to the members area where there's lots and lots of free content. And also sign up to this YouTube channel. Then you will know when the next episode comes along the line, and you will help me get the numbers up, which I'm told is a good idea. So like it and subscribe. That's what I'm told that I need to say. Hope to hear from you soon. Many blessings.